The grandfather clock in the hallway struck midnight as I set my purse down on the kitchen counter. My feet ached from the charity gala, but something felt wrong the moment I stepped through the door. The house was too quiet, yet not quite empty. A thin strip of light glowed beneath the door to the study, my husband's study, where we kept our important documents. I slipped off my heels and padded silently across the hardwood floor. The door was cracked open just enough for voices to filter through, low and conspiratorial. I recognized my daughter-in-law Amanda's voice immediately, that musical lilt she used when she wanted something. Transfer completes Friday. He'll never notice until it's too late. My blood turned to ice. I pressed myself against the wall, phone already in my hand, recording app open. "And you're sure about this?" A man's voice. Not my son, Marcus. Deeper, rougher around the edges. "Baby, I've been planning this for months. The old woman trusts me completely. She even gave me access to the family account to help with household expenses." Amanda laughed, sharp and cruel. "They're so gullible. Marcus is wrapped around my finger and his mother thinks I'm some kind of saint." I hit record, my hand trembling but steady enough to capture every word. "What about after?" the man asked. "We take everything we can and disappear. I've already got the offshore account set up. Marcus can cry to his mommy all he wants. By the time they realise what happened, we'll be on a beach in Thailand." "God, you're brilliant, gorgeous and brilliant." Flattery will get you everywhere, Tyler." The sound of kissing made my stomach turn. I'd seen Amanda kiss my son that same way 1,000 times. At Sunday dinners, at his birthday party just 3 weeks ago, at Christmas, standing under the mistletoe I'd hung myself. I remembered the first time Marcus brought her home nearly 2 years ago now. She'd arrived with homemade brownies and a shy smile, complimenting everything from my curtains to my cooking. She asked about my childhood, laughed at my husband George's terrible jokes, and held Marcus's hand with what looked like genuine adoration. By dessert, I was already imagining grandchildren. What a fool I'd been. I captured another 10 minutes of their plotting, discussing account numbers, transfer amounts, timeline details. When they finally finished and I heard movement toward the door, I slipped into the powder room and waited, barely breathing, until Amanda's footsteps faded up the stairs to the guest room where she and Marcus had been staying while their apartment was being renovated. Renovated. Right. Probably another lie. In my bedroom, George was already asleep, snoring softly. I didn't wake him, not yet. I needed to think clearly, and George's first instinct would be to storm into that guest room and confront them both. That's who he was. Direct, honest, immediate. It was one of the reasons I loved him, but right now I needed strategy, not emotion. I sat in the darkness, phone glowing in my lap, and watched the video 3 times. Each viewing made my chest tighter, my jaw clench harder. But by the 3rd time, the initial shock was crystallizing into something cold and calculated. They wanted to play games with my family? Fine. I'd show them how the game was really played. The next morning, I made French toast, Amanda's favourite. I hummed while I cooked, squeezed fresh orange juice, even arranged strawberries in a little heart shape on her plate. When she came downstairs, hair perfectly tousled, wearing one of Marcus's old college t-shirts, I greeted her with a warm smile. "Good morning, sweetheart. Sleep well." "Like a dream," she stretched, cat-like. "Something smells amazing." "Just wanted to do something special. You work so hard helping us with everything around here." She blushed on cue, perfectly practiced. "Oh, you're too kind. It's the least I can do. You and George have been so welcoming." I wanted to throw the hot pan at her lying face. Instead, I poured her coffee just the way she liked it. Too much cream, 2 sugars. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something." I slid into the chair across from her, folding my hands like we were having a pleasant chat. "George and I are getting older, and we want to make sure our affairs are in order, you know, for Marcus's future." Her eyes glittered with barely concealed excitement. "Of course, that's very responsible. I was thinking you could help me organize our investment accounts. Maybe we should consolidate some things, make them easier to manage. You're so good with computers and modern banking. I'd be happy to help. Her voice was honey-sweet poison. Whatever you need. Wonderful. I'll get you all the account information this afternoon. After breakfast, I waited until she left for her supposed yoga class, probably meeting Tyler, before I woke George and Marcus. I brought them both into the study, closed the door, and played the video. Marcus went white as a sheet. He watched in silence, jaw working, eyes filling with tears. When it ended, he looked at me with devastation written across every feature. Mum, I'm so sorry. I'm so... Stop. I kept my voice gentle but firm. This is not your fault. She fooled all of us. George's reaction was exactly what I expected. He stood up, face purple with rage. That scheming little... I'm calling the police right now. I'm throwing her out on the street. You're going to sit down and listen to me. I used the voice that had raised 3 children and managed a household for 40 years. George sat. I told them my plan. Marcus looked skeptical. George looked like he wanted to argue, but they both knew that look in my eye, the one that meant I'd already decided, and nothing would change my mind. We need documentation of intent and action, I explained. Right now, we have conspiracy. But if we let her actually attempt the theft, document everything, and then stop her at the critical moment, we have solid evidence. Plus, I added, looking at Marcus, this Tyler character needs to face consequences too. If we spook them now, he disappears. And Amanda plays the victim. Marcus's hands were shaking. I remembered teaching him to ride a bike, to tie his shoes, to stand up to bullies in elementary school. I'd told him then, son, sometimes you have to be smarter than mean. Sometimes you have to think 3 steps ahead. Trust me, I said, taking his hand. I will not let her destroy this family. And the next week was excruciating. I played the doting mother-in-law while Amanda played the devoted daughter-in-law, and all the while we both knew a storm was coming. I gave her access to consolidated account information, real accounts, but ones I'd already emptied and moved elsewhere. George set up dummy accounts with just enough money to look legitimate. We documented every login, every query, every digital footprint she left. Meanwhile, Marcus played his part beautifully, though it cost him. He still kissed her goodbye in the mornings, still held her hand at dinner. But at night, he moved his things to the spare room, claiming work stress and not wanting to disturb her sleep. She seemed relieved. I hired a private investigator to follow her. The photos came back like clockwork. Amanda and Tyler at a motel. Amanda and Tyler at a jewelry store. Looking at expensive watches. Amanda and Tyler at a travel agency pointing at pictures of tropical beaches. During one family dinner, Amanda looked at me across the table with those big, innocent eyes and said, "You know, Linda, you've taught me so much about what it means to be part of a real family. I never had that growing up." I remembered her stories about her difficult childhood, her absent father, her struggling mother. I'd felt such sympathy for her. Now I wondered how much of it was true and how much was just another manipulation. "Family is everything," I replied, meeting her gaze steadily. "We protect what's ours." Something flickered in her expression. There and gone in an instant. Uncertainty, maybe. Fear. But then she smiled and the mask was back in place. Friday arrived. According to the intercepted emails between Amanda and Tyler, today was the day. They'd set up transfers to drain the accounts, then planned to meet at the motel, collect their things, and disappear before dinner. George, Marcus, and I sat in the study watching the computer screen. Our IT consultant, a stern woman named Patricia who George knew from his days in corporate law, monitored everything from her laptop. "She's logging in now," Patricia said. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. "Accessing the accounts, starting the transfer sequence." My heart pounded. Marcus sat rigid beside me, his hand gripping mine so tightly it hurt. "Transfer initiated. She's moving funds to..." "Yes, the offshore account. We've got her. Every keystroke documented. IP address logged. Timestamps recorded. How much is she trying to take? George asked. $350,000. Marcus made a strangled sound. That was his inheritance from his grandmother. Money we'd been saving for him to buy a house, start his own business someday. Transfer is blocked, per your instructions. Patricia looked up. She's going to get an error message. She'll probably try again. We watched as Amanda did exactly that. Tried the transfer again. Failed. Then again, swearing audibly from upstairs. We could hear her pacing, her voice rising as she called Tyler. It's not working. Something's wrong with the account. Tyler's voice came through her phone speaker, tinny but clear. What do you mean it's not working? The transfer keeps failing. The money's showing in the account, but I can't move it. Did you trip some kind of security measure? I don't know. I did everything exactly like we planned. Calm down. Just calm down. Look, forget it for now. Grab whatever cash and jewelry you can find in the house. We'll figure out the accounts later. Meet me at the motel in an hour. Patricia raised an eyebrow at me. I nodded. Let her take the bait, I said quietly. We listened as Amanda ransacked the house. I'd left out my jewelry box, the nice-looking one with costume jewelry inside. The real pieces were in a safety deposit box downtown. We heard drawers opening, items being shoved into bags. Then her footsteps on the stairs, the front door opening and closing, the sound of her car starting up and pulling away. Now? George asked. Now. We drove to the motel. I'd chosen the police officer carefully. Detective Sarah Chen. A woman I knew through volunteer work. Someone I trusted completely. She met us in the parking lot with 2 other officers. You're sure about this? She asked, reviewing the documentation we'd provided. Completely sure. All right, we'll wait for her to enter the room, give them a few minutes, then execute the warrant. We didn't have to wait long. Amanda arrived with 3 bags full of what she thought was valuable merchandise. We watched from Detective Chen's unmarked car as she knocked on the motel room door. Tyler answered, pulling her inside. 10 minutes later, Detective Chen and her officers approached the door. The knock was sharp and official. Police! Open the door! The chaos that erupted was almost comical. Through the thin motel walls, we could hear scrambling, shouting, something crashing to the floor. When the officers finally entered, they found Amanda and Tyler attempting to escape through the bathroom window. The arrest took less than 5 minutes. As they were led out in handcuffs, Amanda's eyes found mine across the parking lot. The shock on her face was absolute. Her jaw dropped open, eyes wide, all pretense stripped away. I stepped out of the car and walked toward her slowly, deliberately. George and Marcus flanked me. Linda, Amanda started, her voice breaking. This isn't what it looks like. I can explain. Save it. My voice cut through her protests like a blade. I heard you, Amanda, that first night when you thought I was at the gala. I heard you planning to steal from us. I heard you laughing about how gullible we were. I heard you telling your boyfriend here how you were going to disappear with my family's money. Her face went from shock to calculation in an instant. You're lying. You have no proof. I have a recording of your entire conversation. I have documentation of every illegal access you made to our accounts. I have photographs of you and Tyler together. I have transfer attempts, timestamps, keystroke logs. I stepped closer, keeping my voice low and deadly calm. I have everything, sweetheart. Tyler made a move like he might run. The officers tightened their grip. You knew? Amanda whispered. All this time, you knew. All this time, I let you think you were winning. Did you really believe I'd be foolish enough to let you destroy my family? Marcus stepped forward, and the pain in his eyes made Amanda flinch. How could you? His voice cracked. I loved you. I would have given you anything. Marcus, don't. He held up a hand. Don't say my name. Don't lie to me anymore. Just don't. Tyler chose that moment to open his mouth. Look, this is all just a big misunderstanding. Amanda and I are just friends. Shut up, Amanda hissed at him. No, you shut up. Tyler rounded on her, panic evident. This is your fault. You said it was foolproof. You said they'd never figure it out. I said, shut up, Tyler. They started arguing, right there in the parking lot, hurling accusations and blame at each other while the police officers looked on with professional detachment. Detective Chen caught my eye and shook her head slightly, almost amused. We see this a lot, she murmured. Thieves have no loyalty, not even to each other. The moment that made everything worthwhile came when Amanda tried one last manipulation. She looked at Marcus with tears streaming down her face and said, "Baby, please, you know me. You know I love you." This was all Tyler's idea. He forced me to. "Get her out of my sight," Marcus said flatly, turning away. As they loaded Amanda and Tyler into separate patrol cars, I felt my mother's voice in my head, a memory from 30 years ago sitting on her porch drinking sweet tea. She'd been telling me about a neighbour who'd been swindled by a con artist. "Linda," she'd said, "you remember this. Greed destroys character faster than anything else in this world. And when you see someone showing you who they really are, you believe them the first time. I'd believed Amanda when she showed me kindness. But I'd also believed her when she showed me her true nature. The difference was I'd known which version was real." The legal proceedings moved faster than I expected. With the overwhelming evidence, Amanda's lawyer advised her to take a plea deal. Tyler tried to fight his charges, but the prosecution had him dead to rights. What we didn't anticipate was how thoroughly Tyler would turn on Amanda once he realized she'd dragged him into a crime with ironclad evidence against them both. It was Detective Chen who called me 2 weeks after the arrest. "Mrs. Harrison, I thought you'd want to know. We arrested Tyler again, this time for theft from Amanda and attempted human trafficking." "What?" "Apparently after they made bail, separate bail, different bondsmen, Tyler went to Amanda's apartment. He stole the bail money, her computer, her jewelry, everything. Then he contacted some very unsavory people and tried to sell her to a trafficking ring operating out of the Port District." My hand flew to my mouth. Dear God. Amanda's mother called it in. The mother doesn't have much, but she scraped together enough to get her daughter a good lawyer, and that lawyer smelled something wrong. We set up a sting. Caught Tyler red-handed trying to complete the transaction. She paused. "I've been doing this 20 years, Mrs. Harrison. I've never seen someone spiral so completely, so fast." "Is Amanda?" "She's safe. Shaken up, broke, humiliated, and facing criminal charges, but safe. For what it's worth, I think reality has finally hit her." After I hung up, I told George and Marcus. Marcus looked stunned. "I know I should feel vindicated," he said slowly, "but I just feel sad. What we had wasn't real, but I thought it was. And now everything is just ruined," I finished gently. "I know, sweetheart. But here's what I learned a long time ago. When someone shows you a beautiful facade and an ugly reality, the ugly reality is who they really are. You're mourning something that never actually existed. Doesn't make it hurt less." "No," I agreed, "it doesn't." So the divorce was finalized on a Tuesday. Marcus signed the papers in our lawyer's office with hands that only shook a little. Amanda signed from a holding cell while awaiting trial for her amended charges. The evening after, I made Marcus's favorite dinner, pot roast with carrots and potatoes, my mother's recipe. George opened a bottle of good wine. We sat around the same table where Amanda had sat dozens of times, pretending to be family. "I have something to say," Marcus announced, setting down his fork. He looked at me with clear eyes, clearer than they'd been in weeks. "Mom, I'm sorry." "For what?" "For not seeing it, for bringing her into our lives, for putting you and Dad at risk." "Marcus Emmanuel Harrison." I used his full name the way I had when he was a child. "You loved someone and you trusted them. That's not something to apologize for. That's called being a good man with a good heart." "Your mother's right," George added. "Amanda fooled all of us. She was very, very good at what she did. But Mom saw through her." "Eventually," I said, "and only because I got lucky that night. If I'd come home 10 minutes later, or if that door had been fully closed, Who knows what would have happened? Marcus was quiet for a moment, then said, "Do you remember when I was 7 and that kid Brian kept stealing my lunch money?" I smiled. "I remember. You told me that bullies count on you being scared and not telling anyone. You said the way to beat them was to be smarter and braver, to make a plan and not act on emotion." I remember that too. That's what you did here. You didn't panic. You made a plan. You protected all of us. He reached across the table and took my hand. "Thank you." My eyes stung with tears. "That's what mothers do, baby. We protect our children, even when our children are grown men who think they don't need protecting anymore." George raised his glass. "To Linda, the smartest, bravest woman I've ever known." We clinked glasses, and for the first time in weeks, the house felt like home again. 3 months later, I was in the garden planting tulip bulbs when Marcus brought someone home to meet us. Her name was Rachel, and she was nothing like Amanda. She wore no makeup, had dirt under her fingernails from her job at a veterinary clinic, and when she shook my hand, her grip was firm and honest. "Marcus has told me about everything," she said carefully. "I just want you to know, Mrs. Harrison, I understand if you're cautious. You have every right to be." I studied her for a long moment. She didn't flinch, didn't put on a false smile, just met my gaze with steady brown eyes. "Call me Linda," I said. "And yes, I am cautious, but I'm also not going to judge you by someone else's mistakes. Come on inside." I just made lemonade. As we walked toward the house, Rachel hanging back with Marcus while George asked her about her work, I felt my mother's presence again, that warm, knowing feeling that sometimes accompanied major moments. This one will be different, I thought. I can feel it. And watching Rachel laugh at one of George's terrible jokes, seeing the way Marcus looked at her with cautious hope rather than blind devotion, I knew I was right. And the final twist came 6 months after Amanda's conviction. I received a letter in the mail, handwritten on prison stationery. "Dear Linda, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to read this whole letter. But I needed to try. You were right about everything. I was greedy, manipulative, and cruel. I convinced myself I deserved what you and your family had, that it was somehow owed to me because life had been hard. I told myself so many lies that I started believing them. Tyler is going away for a long time. I testified against him, and in exchange my sentence was reduced. I'll be out in 3 years if I behave. My mother visits me every week. She's the only one who still does. She brings me books and tells me about her garden. Last week she told me about how you sent her a check, enough to cover her rent for 6 months. She said you wrote that no mother should suffer for her daughter's mistakes. I cried for 2 hours after she told me. I don't know why you did that. I don't deserve your kindness. But it made me realize something. I never understood what family actually means. I thought it was something you could fake. Something you could use. You showed me it's something you protect. Something worth fighting for. I'm sorry for what I tried to take from you. I'm sorry for hurting Marcus. I'm sorry for being someone who would do those things. I don't know who I'll be when I get out of here, but I know who I don't want to be anymore. Thank you for stopping me before I became someone even worse. Amanda. I read the letter twice, then showed it to George and Marcus. "What are you going to do?" Marcus asked. I folded the letter carefully and tucked it into my desk drawer. "Nothing. She needs to figure out her own redemption. But I'm glad she's starting to understand what she did. And her mother. Her mother is innocent in all this. She deserves help." I smiled at my son. Family is everything, Marcus. Even the families we're not born into. Even the families that disappoint us. We protect what we can, save who we can, and forgive what we're able to. That night, I stood on our back porch, watching the sun set over the garden where I'd planted those tulip bulbs. They'd be blooming soon, red and yellow and white, beautiful and new. George came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "What are you thinking about?" "About how lucky we are. I said, about how easily things could have gone differently. But they didn't, because you were paying attention, because you were smart and strong and you protected us. I leaned back against him, feeling the solid warmth of 40 years together. I had good teachers, my mother, my grandmother, all the women in my family who taught me that love isn't just feeling, it's action, it's vigilance. It's being willing to do the hard things to protect the people you care about. Well, George said, kissing the top of my head, remind me never to get on your bad side. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. Too late. You married me. You're stuck with me forever. Good, he said. That's exactly where I want to be. Inside the house, Marcus and Rachel were cooking dinner together, their voices drifting through the open window. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, its own worries. But tonight, standing in the garden with my husband's arms around me and my son's laughter in the air, I felt something settle deep in my chest. Peace, safety, family, everything worth fighting for. And I knew, bone deep and certain, that I would fight for it again if I had to, because that's what mothers do. That's what families do. We protect our own. Thank you, my loves, for watching until the end of the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the newest videos.